And in the newsroom. It's official. Egypt's presidential election will, for the first time ever, go to a runoff. The Muslim Brotherhood's Mohamed Morsi leading the field with nearly a quarter of the vote. Hosni Mubarak's last prime minister, retired Air Force General Ahmed Shafiq, in second. And left-wing Nasserist candidate Hamdin Sabahi polling a surprise third. We're going to be looking at the results at a turnout rate of 46%. That's lower than during legislative elections. Part of the problem, and we'll discuss it, the next president's job description, far from clear. The constitution still being written up. The unfinished script of Egypt's constitution mirroring the unfinished script of Egypt's revolution. Does it now boil down to a religious conservative against a product of the old regime? The young liberals who first occupied Tahrir Square may not have a candidate of their own, but some contend they now have a chance to play kingmaker in all this. Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at Egypt's choice, and with us to talk about it from Cairo, Ahmed Naguib of the Egyptian Tayyar Party. Thanks for being with us. Ahmed, I'm correct in saying that you voted for Muslim Brotherhood dissident candidate Abdel Munim Abdel Fouto.
Yes, I did.
All right, thank you for being with us. We'll get back to that in a moment. Also with us, activist Hana Youssef of the January 25th movement, who also voted for Abdel Fouto. You'll be explaining your choice in a moment. Bernard Haeckel of Princeton University's Department of Near East Studies is with us, and also with us, Paris-based business developer George Hanna. Thank you for being with us. You voted for Ahmed Shafiq in this election. The France 24 debate, where you can weigh in on the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter, where you can find us at François F24. Now, Egypt's revolution's been chock full of surprises, and this presidential election, no surprise. Let's again look at those numbers, bringing in the top, not 3, but 5. You'll see Mohamed Morsi there, nearly a quarter of the vote, and you'll also see that Abdel Fattah and Amr Moussa, the former foreign minister and leader of the Arab League, they polled 4th and 5th, even though the two of them took place in that his first ever candidates debate that we saw before the election. Let me begin with you, Ahmed Naguib, in Cairo. What's your reaction when you see the result that's been sanctified?
Well, of course, this is a first-timer for everyone. As you remember, in the 60s, when Nixon and Kennedy first appearance in one of the early debates, televised debates, it took its toll on Nixon when he didn't look that well and he didn't perform that well. I think one of the same things, something similar happened to Abdel Fattah and to Amr Moussa. It was mobilized and portrayed as a match or a game, where the sum of this equation was a zero sum. It wasn't really an experience that people had gone through. Both campaigns did not have advisors who can advise them how to perform in such an environment, and it took its toll on both of them severely.
And did you vote for Abdel Fattah because he's your man, or it was a tactical choice?
No, I voted for him because he was able to more or less become a national unity figure, where you have Muslims, Christians, liberals, leftists, Islamists working for him. They all believe that he has a program, the strongest program, and at the same time he has the ability to curb some of the Muslim Brotherhood enthusiasm.
And yet he finished 4th. Did you vote for Abdel Fattah for those same reasons?
Some of the same reasons, I would say, but I was actually most convinced with candidate Khaled Ali, who I personally believe is the future of Egypt, with his total control on the economy, economical issues, the issues of Egypt, a long history of working for workers' rights, and he's one of the co-founders of Sheikh Mubarak Law Center. But unfortunately, at this time, his popularity is very low. He got less than 1%, I believe. But if I had done it again, I would have voted for him.
Right. Ahmed Shafiq, a lot of people surprised to see him in the runoff. Were you surprised? I know you voted for him, but are you surprised?
Yeah, actually, this typically reflects the people need today that somebody like Shafiq, who was not at the beginning classified to be one of the top 3 and became here. And this is, for me, reflect the main needs of the people. On the first point is the need of somebody accountable, who not only talk the talk but also walk the walk, and somebody more gives stability and security to the nation that we really need since 2 years now is struggling with security and stability issues. And finally, I think they're looking for somebody who has authority and leadership to gather the whole nation for the future, and not just like taking care about one division of one category of the nation.
Bernard Hegel, what strikes you? What was for you the biggest surprise when you look at these final results?
I mean, I was very surprised that that Amr Moussa, polled so badly.
10%.
Yeah, really, really badly. And in a way, he performed really badly in the debate against Abu Futuh. I'm also surprised that Abu Futuh didn't do better, because he was a rallying candidate that brought leftists and liberals, all kinds of people around him, and Islamists. And what we end up with is a very polarized field with one person who represents really the pole of stability and security. And many small business people in Egypt really are sick and tired of the economic instability, which is very bad for business, and the lack of security. And I think that I think explains in large part his success.
A conservative backlash, you'd say?
It's not so much conservative. It's just a desire for more. You won't invest. You won't in your business if you don't have some sense of where the future is headed. The other thing that worries me in all of this is that I listened to Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi yesterday, who's a main sort of Muslim Brotherhood religious figure in Qatar, and he basically blamed the Copts for Shafiq's win. And I thought that it was, he was engaging in a form of demagoguery and threatening language against them, and saying that he won't accept an outcome that doesn't have Mohammed Morsi as the Muslim Brotherhood candidate who wins the second round.
Ahmed Naguib, is that the way it's playing in Cairo? Is Ahmed Shafiq being portrayed as the Copt candidate?
No, not exactly, but people say that the swinging vote was because of the Coptic direction, and he can't really blame them. He's been playing on the security tone and the security issue a lot. And this is a community that feels threatened, and I think the way they voted was the devil you know is better than the devil that you don't know. And because the Muslim Brotherhood failed to communicate properly and adequately to the Christian community in Egypt. This is, I think, a failure on the behalf of the revolution movements and the political movements to communicate with a strong message to our Christian brothers that this is their country as much as it's ours. This is a discourse problem. Then again, the promises that Shafiq used to restore security, he's talking about restoring the same security apparatus that was used to oppress millions of Egyptians for over 30 years. And it's not true that it will bring stability, because people will immediately go out in Tahrir Square again if he wins the presidency, which means this is a myth that he's going to be able to bring stability.
George Hanna, your reaction?
I mean, he was always listening to the people thought, and that's why he stepped down at some point from the power. I think this is one of the major points that makes people feel comfortable also to go for it. For the Coptic point of view, I don't think if there was any orientation to one of the candidates as the Coptic person. I went to different gathering, and in none of them we had any mention of.
You were in Cairo last week.
Yeah, no one of them had say you have to vote for this or this. But I think this is like normal orientation for people seeking for security and stability, especially after a lot of movement the last year in Coptic's category.
All right, so people on edge, as we've been saying, and by the way, the announcement of those results It happened also in a sort of surprising way, you might say. A law that would bar former Mubarak regime dignitaries from politics could be up, by the way, for the higher constitutional court June 11th. That's 1 week before the scheduled runoff. Now, at the press conference this Monday, the chair of the Electoral Commission refused to explain what would happen next. Turns out that Farouk Sultan is also the head of the same higher constitutional court. There you see him. He storms out of that press conference, sick of being asked the same question all over and over again, and the press claps. It ended, you could say, in confusion, that press conference. How does that bode, the fact that it's the same person who's heading the Constitutional Commission, higher constitutional court, is also the head of the Electoral Commission? What faith do you have in the results that are going to come through in the second round?
The question about the faith I have in the Election Commission and the High Constitutional Court is very low. The people who are running both are members of the former regime. So I'm not surprised at all that they have made this decision of waiting until after the results to look at this law, which the parliament has already passed. It has already barred for 10 years the dignitaries of the Mubarak regime, but the Election Commission has refused to follow that.
And do you agree with Ahmed Naguib when he talks about, the people will keep the authorities honest by going back to Tahrir Square?
I think it's important to realize something, that we're not in a democracy, so you shouldn't pretend like we're in a democracy. We are in a revolution. And so the elections are a step on the way that can take us forward or backward, but they're still a step in a revolution. So if, let's say, Shafiq, which is the representative of a military dictatorship that is brutally repressing the population, if this person gets power, the revolution will continue. Or the revolution continue anyway, but this will even inflame everything. I would like just to comment two small things about Shafiq listening to the people and stepping down. He was forced to step down by a sit-in that was, by the way, brutally repressed by the military. The 9th of March, we have the story of the forced virginity test on the female protesters, beatings, torture. And this was not a choice that Shafiq did because he listened to the people. He was forced by the revolutionary to step down.
All right. Here's the reaction of one Egyptian, Iyad el-Baghdadi, who's helped to compile results during the first round on Twitter. He says, the puzzle is how Shafiq beat both Morsi and Abdul Fattah in governance considered Muslim Brotherhood strongholds. Something stinks, he says. Let me ask you, Ahmed Naguib, do you call into questions the results?
Absolutely. You have to understand that Shafiq's candidacy is a false one because the state court had asked the commission, the electoral commission, to abide by its ruling, and the commission refused to. That's the first thing. The other thing is that the committee just announced that 170,000 dead people made it to elections and cast their votes, which means that the same old tactics that the Ministry of Interior did, as well as the Electoral Committee, which is the same, by the way, that witnessed the forging of the 2010 and 2005 elections, are the same people. And at the same time, 900,000...
But those ballots were spoiled, weren't they? Those 170,000.
They were just taken out. But 900,000, there's a police officer 3 days ago who submitted to the General Attorney a report with evidence that 900,000 false IDs were issued for military and police personnel to vote in these elections. So we're talking about also something called the ballots, the turning ballots, which is you get someone to go inside with a ballot that with a mark on Shafiq and go in and take the clean one out to make sure that they're voting for Shafiq for money, and other tactics as well. So there are several serious critical issues that make us believe that this election is false, to start with the candidacy of Shafiq itself, and the tactics of the Ministry of Interior, and the backing of the Ministry of Defense or the Military Council and the Ministry of Interior behind Shafiq.
George Hanna, your reaction?
Yeah, I have 3 comments on what had been said. So first, for the democracy, I think today was the first day in the Egyptian history that the family was gathered in front of the TV looking forward to know the results. because this is the first time I think we have democratic elections. So we shouldn't underestimate the role of the revolution. We should underestimate what had been done through the last 2 years. I think today we have a very good sample of democratic election, even if sometimes the result doesn't please for some of us. Second point, saying that there is false election or not, I think there is a commission that had to decide. If they didn't want to look for it, that means that they have not enough proof or whatever. This is their job. So I don't understand people just taking over the responsibility of this commission and advancing other statements. And at the end, tactics or people going through several times, or dead people or whatever, we don't know for whom they voted. Why we just underestimating that's for Shafiq?
Bernard Hakel, question here. In Tunisia, they first had a constitution written up, then they had an election.
That's right.
In Egypt, they did it the other way around. Is that what's...
That's right. And I think there is a problem with that sequencing of events. But one of the reasons they couldn't come up with a constitution in Egypt was because the role of the army couldn't be defined. And the army in Egypt controls anywhere between maybe 15% to 40% of the economy. So that's huge, you know. And I think the big unanswered question in these elections is, what is the future role of the army going to be? And I think the results that we see are in part the results of what the army is offering the world, which is, you know, you have a choice between an old guard type regime or an unpredictable Muslim Brotherhood regime.
And do you think that those are the actual results?
I mean, it's hard to say, really. I don't know. I mean, it's possible that there's rigging and fraud, but I would want to see proof.
All right. Before we go to the break, let me get your reaction on this. When you look at Hana Youssef, at the way the breakdown of the numbers happen, you said yourself that you had a preferred candidate, but instead you decided to vote for someone else in the hopes of federating votes. When you look at the breakup of the vote, it's less than a quarter that voted for Shafiq. So is it Shafiq's fault that he's in the second round, or is it the fault of all those who couldn't rally behind a single candidate?
I do not agree with this thought of that the revolutionary candidates should have all united in one front, because there's different thought, and the revolution is wide in ideas. That's one thing. The second thing, I find it to be very strange that Shafiq can get as many votes pretty much as Morsi. I find that to be very strange. I don't have any proof. I can't say that there's been fraud. But when the whole system is wrong, even maybe if you count the votes can be counted correct, but when the whole system, as the tweet said, stinks, then I have my doubts about the fairness of these elections.
All right, and when we come back, we're going to look at how things go moving forward to that June 17th second round and beyond. This is the France 24 debate.